Stapleton. Douglas stood very still. John Stapleton nibbled briefly at the toe of Douglas's left shoe, as if testing it for taste. Then the cat proceeded down the hall, disappearing into the shadows. This is insane, thought Douglas. This night, this family, this cat, they're all of them certifiable. But the cat seemed like an omen somehow, and as Doug washed his face and hands in the bathroom sink, and as he studied his goofy haircut and took deep weightlifting breaths to compose himself, he thought of Nicole. He thought of the simple silver post earrings she always wore. He recalled the Melville she'd committed to memory, the respect she had for Graham Greene novels, the merciless grip she kept on her stick when she played field hockey. Her favorite film was The Philadelphia Story. Tough favorite to argue against. He'd heard her rail passionately against the death penalty once during an ethics class debate, and he'd seen her hold a faculty member's baby in her arms. I'd like to talk to Nicole alone, said Douglas, when he rejoined the Bonners. Of course he would, said Sampson. Alone, alone. Paulette smiled wearily at Douglas. Use my study. Sampson stood up and shook Douglas's hand. They were alone. The study door was closed. Nicole sat on a daybed, her shoes off, her calves drawn together into one side. Across the room, Douglas sat on the edge of a wooden chair, the top crossbar of which was embossed with a crest. Douglas thought that it might be the Bonner family crest, but he didn't ask. Nicole cracked her knuckles. In a minute, I'm going to start calling you Douglas instead of Mr. Kerchak. Oh, really? Nicole sighed. Mr. Kerchak, please, just listen. I'm going to say some things. Douglas collected his thoughts. Outside the door were a married couple on a green couch, drinking brandy, perhaps petting John Stapleton. In the study with him was a headstrong young woman. Mr. Kerchak, said Nicole, you know that I'm smart, that I can think and read well, like you could when you were 19. But I also know what the world is like, Mr. Kerchak. Douglas watched Nicole. She's serious, he thought. She's deadly serious. I know, said Nicole. I know how long people go in this city without finding someone to love. I'm young, but I understand loneliness. Nicole rubbed her feet. Listen, I know I can be irrational, Douglas. Douglas caught his breath. He felt something in his spine. Fear, maybe. Like tonight, said Nicole, that King Lear business. But here's something you probably don't know. I saw you at the Film Forum last week. Douglas blushed again. They were showing The Gunfighter with Gregory Peck. It was last Tuesday, the 9 p.m. show. I saw it advertised in the paper. I just knew you'd be there, so I went. Douglas tried to remember what he'd worn out that night, what candy he'd brought with him. A flannel shirt, gummy bears. I sat 5 rows behind you and watched your silhouette. I saw you admiring the guy who played the bartender, you know, the guy from On the Waterfront. Douglas closed his eyes. She's right, he thought. She's 19, and she's right. Anyway, whether you marry me or not, this is what I want to tell you, Nicole exhaled. It's no good, Douglas. Douglas kept his eyes closed. He was listening. It's no good, the way you're living. All those weights you lift, all those miles you run, all those movies you see. It isn't right. It's lonely. Douglas looked at her then. He saw her curves and her temples, but something else, too. Something that lived behind her eyes. You're a good teacher and all, but you're just killing time, Douglas, I can tell. Bullshit, thought Douglas. Then he thought, how? How am I killing it? I can tell from the books you assign, the ties you wear, everything. Nicole was not chewing her hair. You're ready, Douglas, for the woman, the one you're supposed to marry. Nicole shrugged just a little. And I think she's me. I've dated some guys, and I know what's around, and, well, I just know what I want. How? Blurted Douglas. His hands trembled on the snifter, so he put it down. He felt like he might weep, but he refused to. How are you saying all this? I just am. Nicole gazed at her teacher. Are you in... Douglas changed phrases. Do you love me? Nicole petted her neck, sipped her brandy. Look, I've got Princeton to go to, and I've got that huge heirloom library out there to read. I'm just saying that you should have a woman with you at the movies, and she should be me. I'm ready for her to be me. Douglas couldn't sit still any longer. He stood up and paced, the way he always had in the locker room before a fight. He wanted to shout or punch or be punched. He wanted something reliable, something he knew the feeling of. He stalked over to Nicole, unsure of what to do. Easy, Douglas. Nicole moved back on the daybed. No. Douglas shook his head, kept pacing. No. Easy, Douglas. You have to tell me something here. I'm 31, and I'm your teacher, for Christ's sake. I mean, is this... Look, answer me now. Nicole. Okay, she whispered. I will. Is this real? I mean, are you in love with me? I'm ready to be, said Nicole. And I mean this as a compliment, but I've got nothing better to do. Douglas stopped pacing. I'm going crazy, he said softly. I'm standing here, solidly, on my own 2 feet, and I'm going crazy. Nicole smiled. She took his hand. Listen, she said, I have the prom in a month, which my cousin Fred's escorting me to, and graduation's 2 weeks after that. It'll be hectic for a bit, but as of the first week of June, I'm prepared to become completely infatuated with you. Douglas laughed out loud at the practicality in her voice. He thought of his mother, of Chiapas and the Mexicans, of the unbroken chain of essays that he'd corrected for the past 6 years. There might be thousands of essays. And there might have been a time in history when all people spoke like Nicole Bonner. I can commute to Princeton, explained Nicole, or else just come back to you on weekends. My family's a little eccentric, and I am too, but, well, there it is. What do you think? Douglas pulled Nicole to her feet. He felt giddy, vicious. He didn't know what he felt. Like an animal, he set his teeth for one last stand. Nicole. His voice was low, almost mean. Yes. I'm only going to ask you this once more. All right? If you're kidding about all this, and you tell me tomorrow that you're kidding, and then I'll... Douglas clenched and unclenched his fists. I'm not kidding, said Nicole. Douglas looked out the window at New York City. He looked back at Nicole. You're sure? Nicole reached up, trailed one hand lightly over Douglas's haircut. Domestic short hair, she whispered. Douglas took both her hands in his. He was beaming. He felt slightly nauseous. All right. All right. If you're serious, then I want you to do something for me. Nicole frowned. No sex till we're hitched. A kiss, maybe. Be quiet and listen. Douglas's voice quavered with pleasure. I don't want you to kiss me. I want you to hit me. What? Douglas couldn't keep the grin, the old triumphant sass off his face. I want you to punch me in the stomach as hard as you can. Nicole stepped away. You're insane. No. Douglas took her by the shoulders, squared her off, facing him. Trust me. If you do this, I'll know that I'll just know. Nicole laughed just a little. You're a freak. Hit me. Nicole angled her head to one side. You're serious? Give me your hand. Nicole held out her right palm. Make a fist. No, like this with your thumb outside. Good. How do you know how to... Shut up and hit me. Douglas sneered at her. Come on. Let's see what you've got. A wicked joy stole over Nicole's face. You better watch it. Hit me. I'll do it, Douglas. Go ahead. Nicole drew her fist back to her hip. Her eyes checked the door that was hiding her parents. She looked at Douglas as if she would erupt with laughter or something else, something he couldn't predict. Come on, punk. Douglas dared her, and that was it. Nicole shot her fist forward and showed him what the both of them were in for.